Welcome back, everyone. We are now moving in our economics of gender to think about explanations for the wage gap, because we learned that bargaining outside the household shapes bargaining inside the household. Comparative advantage, preferences, power, whatever you want. One explanation is that women earn less than men in the labor market. So what explains that? One answer was Larry Becker. He said, look, we'd love to pay women more, but they're just not as good as men in math, STEM, sciences, in the places where women can earn equal high wages to men. We'd love to be equal, but they're just not as good. What to do? And we learned that one way to think about this is to look at data. And in the data, we found that actually, in terms of math scores, women were doing pretty well, and the greater male variance hypothesis didn't really track well. So which means something else is going on. So the first lesson is that even if you see data of differences, you still have to go through the process of explaining the data. And in this case, the explanation that women were not as good as men at STEM and tech was not holding water. So what else could be going on? Could be preferences. Women just don't like math. Women prefer the household. But what we found is that every time women are given job opportunities, they show up across the world. So it isn't clear that women are unwilling to do paid labor. So we still then have something to explain. Why do women earn less than men in paid labor? So what this means is now we have to enter the labor market. We have to look at labor market dynamics. We have to look at decision making in the workplace to figure out why women are not paid as much as men. And the obvious answer is discrimination. Women are discriminated. But that's actually an incomplete answer for two reasons. One is because the concept of discrimination needs to be fully fleshed out. It's the same concept that's used for race, for gender, for ethnicity, for immigration, discrimination. And it's a legal concept. So we're going to spend some time with that in a future video. But essentially, discrimination is a very interesting claim, except figuring out what that means requires us to figure out the legal definition, but also to figure out a bunch of other things in the labor market. So to begin with, the legal definition of discrimination is that when two people, both of whom can prove they are equally qualified and operate in the same way, one of them does not get promoted or money and the other does. That's discrimination. And discrimination is really useful, as we're going to find out, for racial discrimination, where the basic idea is two people are essentially the same. One is chosen, one is not. One is promoted, one is not. Discrimination is a lot more difficult to address with gender, because that means proving men and women are the same. So if a company says, hey, I would love to hire women, but they go out and get pregnant, that costs me money. What am I supposed to do? In that case, you've got a difference between men and women. And the company can say, hey, I would love to hire a woman who's exactly the same as men, but she goes off and gets pregnant. She is not as competitive as the men. She's not the same as the men. What do I do? So we're going to have to think through this concept and also think through what other things might be going on in the labor market, which is a form of discrimination, but not legally recognized as such. So the economics of gender places on the table both similarity, sameness. Men and women are exactly the same. Ergo, if women earn less, they are discriminated against. Or difference. Men and women have differences. Women get pregnant. Women lactate. Women prioritize the families. So that might be why we see a wage gap. So we already saw it wasn't just women's math brains, but there still remain other hypotheses of how men and women differ that can explain the wage gap. So gender, unlike some other axes of difference, such as race, has very specific issues to deal with, because we do have biological social differences between men and women. And we don't want to say those are always wrong. Whereas when it comes to race, if someone says, hey, Asian men have brilliant math brain, black men are terrible at math, then actually we can use the data, as we've already talked about for gender, to say, what's your evidence? What are you saying about whether we're good enough or not? And in recent years, the fact that Nigerian immigrants have the highest rate of education in the United States, compared even to the classic model minority of South Asians. So here you are. So we can use that data to talk about discrimination, but it's not adequate to explain what's going on. So now, in order to explain what's going on, what we need to do is to disaggregate the labor market process to figure out where things may go wrong. So there are 4 things we have to look at. The first is recruitment and hiring. Maybe discrimination is taking place at the point when people are hired. We're not recruiting them and we're not hiring them. As it turns out, in some of the studies, we'll see that is absolutely true for race. We're not recruiting them and we're not hiring them. But it's not true for gender. We're recruiting people, we're hiring them. So at the entry level, women are being recruited, women are being hired. So this probably not an issue if I look at gender alone, but important for intersectionality. Because remember, women are not just women, there are also black women, migrant women, minority women, things like that. So the recruitment and hiring issues will have intersectional issues, especially both for race and also, as we'll find out, for LGBTQ. Then, okay, you brought someone in. But something happens. You're hiring half men, half women. You're hiring them totally equal. But you're offering the men a higher salary when you hire them at the entry level compared to the salary you offer women at the entry level when you hire them. And this is, as we're going to find out, a bargaining issue, because it turns out, especially where you don't just have a job, but a career, where you're going in and you're planning to make a career, you get hired, you're going to get promoted, you're going to work in teams, you have to negotiate your entry salary. So even if you hire both men and women, you may offer the men a better salary than the women at level 1. And it may not be a very big difference. Maybe you just offer the guy $2,000 more. The problem is compound interest, because every promotion, every cost of living, every future salary increase will depend on your original salary. You've got your salary at hiring, and this is going to be compounded by workplace rules. And workplace rules will include things like your promotion will be X% of your salary. If your original salary is less, then the money you get from your promotion will be less. What happens is that we may recruit women and hire them at the same level, but we will start them off at a lower salary. Item 1. 2, the evidence suggests that women are not promoted at the same level as men. That when there are people in a team, both are doing work, they're all working hard, very often it's the man who gets promoted, which means the promotion ladder, not just whether you get hired, but whether you get promoted, will create a salary divergence. Retention. If you have a hostile workplace, if your workplace provides you with no accommodation for pregnancy and childcare, if you're in a meeting and someone says, let's extend the meeting till 7 o'clock to finish this report, because this guy's got a wife at home, and you are a woman who's got kids, and you say, look, I have to go home because I have to take care of my kids, then you're going to be seen as someone who's not ready to finish the report, to stay and finish the work, and so on, and then you won't get promoted. And if you face that a lot, you may just decide to leave the job because it's not worth it. Sexual harassment, huge element of retention. If you face a lot of harassment and people say things like, suck it up, not a big deal, boys will be boys, what are you going to do? You want to spend 30 years of your life in such a toxic environment? Or are you just going to say, maybe I'll take a job with less salary, but where I'm not harassed by the boss? So recruitment and hiring is one opening point. We seem to be recruited same, we seem to be hired same, but our entry salary is not as good. We're not promoted as much as men. We're not retained as much as men. And for that one, it's the component of working place rules. Do we have rules that allow us to renegotiate our salary? Do we have a culture that allows us to bargain for promotion without being viewed as feminazi, not a team worker, really hard to work with, all of those things? And inside workplace rules is unions. And we're going to find unions, as we'll figure out, one of the biggest ways in which salary equity between men and women is attained. And the final component, and this is the least paid attention to, and it's definitely not covered under how we think of discrimination, which is about women entering men's jobs, hired same as men, showing they're same as men, promoted the same as men, retained the same as men. Can you see the standard as men? The fourth one is called job gendering. Job gendering is the idea that even if women prove all this, the way we approach jobs depends on the dominant workforce inside that job. So what's going to happen, and we'll talk about this with job gendering, is let's say we do this successfully. We recruit the women, we've got our DEI initiative, we're doing mentoring, we're doing promotion, we're retraining everyone, we're bringing women in. And now women are in that job. What happens next? Here is what we found historically. When women successfully address 1, 2, 3, enter a male job, men leave the job and the wage for that job drops and the promotion options in that job disappears. The fact that we successfully address 1, 2, 3 means we still haven't addressed the problem. And when we come to the video on job gendering and comparable worth, we're going to look at some historic examples where women successfully entered male areas. They did. They proved they were as good. Men left, salary dropped, promotion disappeared. We now think of this as a female job. I'll give you 2 examples. Now we'll go through them in more detail later. One is banks. Back before World War I, all your tellers, all your clerks, all your front desk people in banks were men, white men. Because our little brains as women, we couldn't handle the numbers. What happened is World War I. All these guys went off to fight the war. So who had to fill the jobs? The women. And the moment women filled the jobs, that job got reclassified as female. It was no longer a smart job. It was just a data entry, front desk, smile at people kind of job. That was it. We're going to look at 2 more examples when we come back to our final video on job gendering and comparable worth. But this is a repeated pattern, which suggests that yes, we want anti-discrimination. But if we want to solve this problem, we need additional policies.